The gorilla enclosure stretched out like a miniature green valley, a serene sanctuary of rolling artificial hills draped in soft grass, rugged moss-covered boulders, and gently trickling streams. This was the kingdom of a close-knit troop of western lowland gorillas, ruled by the commanding silverback, Jabari. Jabari was a majestic figure, his jet-black fur gleaming like silk under the sunlight, his deep-set eyes reflecting ancient wisdom. Beside him stood Aina, the dignified alpha female, a nurturing presence watching over the spirited young ones as they swung and played on low-hanging branches. Among the crowd stood 8-year-old Lily, a quiet soul with a vivid inner world. Her autism had erected an invisible barrier between her and typical social experiences, but it had also gifted her with a profound sensitivity to detail. She found magic in the shifting patterns of sunlight, the delicate flutter of butterflies, and most of all, the soulful eyes of animals. That day, her full attention was drawn to Jabari. He seemed unusually still, almost contemplative. Mesmerized, Lily drifted toward the viewing barrier, her steps silent, her gaze locked onto the massive gorilla. It was as if an invisible thread connected them, something deeper than words, a shared understanding. Then came a moment no one could have foreseen. While her mother was distracted by a message on her phone and her older brother darted after a dragonfly, Lily discovered a narrow opening in the enclosure's fence. A tiny gap, one that a distracted adult might easily miss, called to her adventurous spirit. Innocently, instinctively, she slipped through. Her tiny feet crossed into a world that wasn't meant for her, a domain of wild animals with immense, untamed strength. Suddenly, horrified screams shattered the midday calm. Time seemed to stop. There, in the heart of the enclosure, sat little Lily, alone, vulnerable, dwarfed by the towering gorillas. The crowd froze in stunned silence. Jabari, sensing an unfamiliar presence in his territory, turned. His immense body moved slowly at first, then picked up speed. Muscles rippled under his dark, glistening coat as he advanced, an imposing figure to the terrified onlookers. In that heart-stopping moment, it felt as if the world held its breath. Little Lily stood motionless, staring up at a creature so much larger than herself, unable to grasp the sheer force she was facing. And shock consumed the air. The world around her blurred. Frenzied voices faded into the distance as Lily's small body collapsed onto the soft grass, like a delicate wildflower felled by an unseen wind. In an instant, the entire scene transformed. Now she lay motionless, heartbreakingly fragile, in the heart of the gorilla enclosure. A tiny, unmoving figure surrounded by untamed power. Jabari, the massive silverback, had reached her. He stopped. Towering like a black mountain, his deep brown eyes stared down at the still child before him. The tension that had once charged his every step began to fade, replaced by something else. A strange calm, a quiet, searching curiosity. The rest of the troop gathered slowly, not with violence but with an eerie silence. They formed a circle around Lily, their presence both awe-inspiring and unsettling. Aina, the wise matriarch, stepped forward. Her sharp gaze studied Lily with wary caution. Behind her, the young gorillas clung to their mothers, peeking out with wide, watchful eyes. None of them moved. None of them made a sound. It was as though the entire troop had fallen under a silent command, an unspoken signal from Jabari. Together, they formed a living wall around the unconscious child. The silence that followed was unnerving, deeper and more terrifying than any roar. Beyond the fence, panic reigned. Faces were pale, frozen in horror. Cries of disbelief, desperate prayers, and broken sobs filled the air. People clutched one another, watching helplessly. Lily's mother, devastated and trembling, pushed against the security line trying to reach her daughter, but was firmly restrained. Her eyes were red, her hands shaking uncontrollably. Her cries, raw with fear, echoed through the chaos. The crowd stood paralyzed, unable to comprehend what was unfolding in front of them. No one knew whether Lily was still alive. No one knew what the gorillas would do. The power of the wild loomed like a storm over the fragile body of one innocent child. Then, amid the crushing weight of fear and uncertainty, came a voice of resolve. Dr. Evelyn Reed, a legendary primatologist with over 3 decades of experience, stepped forward. She had spent her life among gorillas, studying them, loving them, understanding their world like few others could. Her presence was calm, but her eyes burned with determination. Without hesitation, she gave a quiet but firm command. "Open the gate." The time-worn iron gate creaked as it swung open, the sound slicing through the hush like thunder. All eyes turned to her as she stepped forward, alone, unarmed. She entered the gorilla enclosure, not as a trespasser but as someone known to its inhabitants. Her footsteps were slow, deliberate. The earth was damp beneath her feet, but her resolve never faltered. There was no fear in her movements, only empathy and quiet authority. Her gaze met Jabari's. There was something unspoken between them, something ancient, powerful, and deeply human, and in that moment the world watched. She softly called his name, Jabari. Her voice, warm and familiar, drifted through the enclosure like a breeze rustling gently through trees. In the breathless stillness, it echoed with surprising clarity. What happened next stunned every onlooker. A moment destined to become legend. Jabari, the majestic silverback, sovereign of this territory, made no move to attack. He stood motionless, like a great bronze statue, his deep eyes fixed on Dr. Reed with quiet intensity. There was no threat in his stance, only recognition. It was as if an old friend had returned after a long absence. The other gorillas mirrored his calm. They didn't panic, growl, or retreat. Instead, they watched. Curiosity flickered in their eyes, and in a few, perhaps even something more, faint traces of familiarity, the remnants of memories long buried. The reason behind this extraordinary peace was hidden in the folds of history. Years ago, when this troop was still young, fragile, orphaned, wounded, it was Dr. Evelyn Reed who had devoted herself to their care. At the zoo's research center, she had tended to them with unwavering compassion. She had fed them, healed them, stayed by their side through every trial. In their formative years, she had been their guardian, their safe place. Her scent, her gentle voice, the tenderness in her touch. It had all become part of their memory, embedded deep in instincts shaped by trust. Now, as she approached Lily, Jabari stepped aside with a slow, deliberate shift of his enormous body, granting her clear access to the child. Kneeling beside the unconscious girl, Dr. Reed gently checked her pulse. Lily's breathing was shallow, but steady. Relief flickered in her eyes. With the same care she had once offered the baby gorillas, she lifted Lily into her arms, cradling her as though she were made of glass. A hush settled over the enclosure as the extraordinary sight unfolded. A lone woman, holding a small child, encircled by towering primates who watched in silent trust. It was more than a rescue. It was a moment of profound beauty, a moment that captured something larger than all of them, a glimpse into the invisible thread connecting humanity and nature. A truth rarely witnessed, that love, trust, and understanding can bridge even the widest of divides. The gorillas did not growl, they did not protest, they simply watched, still and solemn, as if recognizing the woman who had once offered them safety and warmth. With Lily secure in her arms, Dr. Reed rose slowly and turned toward the open gate. The troop followed, not with hostility, but with quiet reverence, escorting her like a silent procession of guardians. When she finally stepped beyond the enclosure, the crowd erupted, not in noise, but in an emotional exhale. A collective tearful sigh of relief swept through the spectators. Tears that had once been born of fear were now tears of awe and gratitude. This was no ordinary accident with a fortunate end. It was a timeless testament to the deep, mysterious bonds that can exist between species. A vivid reminder that compassion knows no language, no boundary, no form, just understanding and trust. Through instinct and something deeper, Lily, lost in her own unique inner world, had unintentionally awakened a gentle and unexpected response from one of the planet's most powerful creatures. And Dr. Evelyn Reed, with her unwavering love, patience, and deep understanding of the wild, had shown that the bond between humans and animals can transcend fear, surpass instinct, and be rooted in something far more profound: trust, compassion, and shared memory. This story stands as a powerful reminder of the hidden beauty and extraordinary complexity of the natural world, a world we are still learning to understand. Too often we view animals through a narrow lens of fear and survival, but every so often moments arise that break through those invisible walls, moments of silent connection, where instinct gives way to empathy and mutual respect. The remarkable story of Lily Jabari and Dr. Reed is more than a rare event. It is a window into what's possible when love leads the way. It reminds us to look at the animal kingdom not just with awe, but with curiosity, compassion, and humility. This heart-stirring incident at the San Diego Zoo Safari Park continues to inspire all who hear it. It speaks to those who believe in the power of kindness, in the possibility of harmony, and in the interconnectedness of all living things. Let this story move us to seek more understanding, more empathy, more stories of hope. Let it encourage us to support those who dedicate their lives to bridging the gap between our world and the wild, from researchers and rescuers to conservationists and caretakers like Dr. Reed. Because every act of compassion is a step toward a brighter future, one where humans and animals don't just coexist, but thrive together. So share this story. Spread the message. Keep your heart open to the wonders that still await in this magical, mysterious, natural world. For in every unexpected connection lies the promise of a more compassionate planet.